What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about Oslo's metro, or what a lot of Americans would call a subway or underground trains. But to be honest, this is something that a lot of Americans, like myself, don't know much about because we really don't have a lot of this stuff. We don't really have a lot of metros and trains or public transportation. That's not very common in the United States. And I can't remember the last time that I used a metro or a train. Maybe when I was a child, like when I went to New York City or a big city, maybe. So today, I'm really interested in learning about what the metro and public transportation is like in Norway, specifically in Oslo, and how this compares to America. So let's take a look.
Since this is Norway, naturally Oslo is located at the end of a fjord, known creatively as the Oslo Fjord.
You know, I never knew that. I know there's a lot of water around Oslo. I never realized Oslo is at the end of a fjord. I just learned that. Okay.
Here is the city center of Oslo, which includes major ferry docks, the Norwegian Parliament, and the Royal Palace.
Sure.
To the east of the city center, we have the Central Station, which is surrounded by development on all sides and has a number of surface terminating platforms, as well as connections through to a cross-city tunnel known as the Oslo Tunnel.
Cool.
Again, creative names. The existence of this tunnel is really impressive, again given Oslo's size.
Wow.
As it turns out, Norway's busiest station is Oslo Central, and the second busiest is National Theatre.
This is the busiest metro train station in all of Norway. It makes sense that it's in Oslo, right?
Only station within the Oslo Tunnel. To the south of the central station are a number of new development areas, and the famously modern Oslo Opera House.
Right.
Zooming out, Oslo spreads out in all directions, but development is constrained by mountains which hem in the city on most sides, as well as numerous watercourses from lakes to rivers and the Oslo Fjord.
Oh.
Now, this video is all
I'm just learning a lot about the geography around Oslo. I didn't know about that. It's surrounded by mountains and there's water, and that must make it difficult to build metros and trains if you want to build like a infrastructure to transport people away and into Oslo from far away. It's difficult to build this stuff in Norway because you guys have like the craziest geography with all the hills and mountains and fjords and stuff.
all about the Metro of Oslo, so let's get talking about that. I should say that the metro is locally known as the T-Bahn or T-Banen, and the metro signs feature a T, which is for
T-Banen.
similar reasons to the T-Bana in Stockholm, a system that has a decent amount in common with Oslo, and that you should definitely check out in my video in the top right corner. Like many other cities, such as Stockholm, Oslo's rapid transit system started with trams, which made their way into tunnels.
Okay.
And over the decades, those tunnels were upgraded and came together to form the central tunnel of the Oslo Metro.
Very nice.
The central tunnel is still a critical part of the metro network, with all 5 services running through it. The tunnel also features a particularly strange and long gap between National Theatre and Majorstuen, a distance of almost 2 kilometers through the center of the city.
This is so cool. I wish we had more stuff like this in the United States. It is, when I see stuff like this, like how much effort and infrastructure and investment you guys build into Norway and your traveling and the metro, it just makes me wonder, why don't we do this in America? Like I said, we have some subways in our biggest cities, like LA and New York, but it's certainly not common.
Within the gap, a former and now abandoned station exists, and there have long been discussions about building a new infill station here. Like in, say, Valencia, there was a long period of time where the metro was isolated in 2 separate systems because trains could not travel across the center. As you've probably figured, Oslo is very much not in the Toronto or Paris school of rapid transit network design, and thus has many branches which feed the central tunnel. Let's talk
Okay.
about those based on the services that operate.
It sounds like, from what he's saying, the Oslo Metro has gone through a lot of upgrades and evolution as time has gone on.
The one service starts way up at the top of a mountain, just about a kilometer's walk from a ski hill. Yes,
Ooh.
you can take the metro to go skiing, and then winds its way down in.
Of course, you Norwegians, you. Of course, you can take the metro to go to a skiing mountain. Of course. That's so funny.
to Oslo. And when I say wind, I mean it. Despite this, it's actually double-tracked right to the end of the line, which is something that isn't true of the Metro of Valencia or even Vancouver's Canada line, but is true of all of Oslo's metro lines.
Wow.
This line in particular is easily one of the most scenic and beautiful pieces of metro infrastructure in the world.
Wow.
You can also see the line's
That's a big perk of having a public transport in Norway. Even if your metro has to wind and twist around the hills and the valleys and the fjords, you get the most beautiful, beautiful views in the world.
tram origins, as there are level crossings, quite a few of them actually, and even tram-style staggered stops, despite the third rail power used across the system these days. The line also has something in common with the Paris Metro, a one-directional station, albeit not as interesting because it isn't underground. As the line comes into
Okay.
central Oslo, it meets with the other tracks from the north and southwest in a series of two flying junctions. Hilariously, though, there is still a grade crossing less than a kilometer away to the west. All of these
This is just I'm getting like mesmerized, but it is so cool to learn about just how this metro and the public transport system works. Because, like, as an American, I don't live in a big, huge city or anything, so I never get to see stuff like this.
These grade crossings are again because this system originally operated trams, and a lot of the alignments are directly adjacent to roadways, just as it would have been on a tram system. From here, the one service continues through Majorstuen and the city center tunnel, and then beyond past Toyen and Helsfyr, where
Okay.
most services terminate, with the limited service continuing that we will come back to. The
Wow.
two service starts west of the city center.
Wow. There's a lot of different, like, services and paths and routes you can take. Like, I feel like in American cities, if there's a metro, it's, like, very limited. Oslo has, like, I don't know. I can't even count how many different paths and trains you can take. There's a lot.
Where it runs on a mostly above ground alignment with basic stations, but full grade separation, before arriving at the city center and combining with the one just west of Majorstuen. After passing through the central tunnel, the line continues beyond Toyen and Helsfyr before turning to the northeast and serving a number of dense housing developments on the mountain slope on an increasingly
So, how much of this is the city of Oslo? Because I know we're looking at a map, and are we showing like the surrounding area around Oslo? Because this looks like a lot of territory.
tunneled alignment, which is thus fully grade separated. The 3 service starts roughly 14 kilometers southwest of central Oslo. The furthest any of the
Wow.
metro lines travels from the city center. This section of the line previously had a number of grade crossings, not unlike the western half of the 1 service. But the line
Wow.
was upgraded to rebuild the alignment, remove grade crossings, and extend platforms about 10 years ago.
It's very nice. I have to say, just looking at it, it looks like a very nice system. And I'm very jealous of it because it seems like it allows Norwegians from all around Norway to have a much, well, I assume there's public transportation and trains going around Norway as well. And if you live in Oslo or near Oslo, you might not even need a car, I guess, right? Like a lot of Norwegians, I feel like some of you guys don't even need a car, which is just crazy for me to think about as an American. I can't even imagine not having a car.
The line winds its way to Bekkestua, where things get quite interesting, as the island platform also features a cutout at its end to accommodate suburban trams from Oslo's tram system, a nice reminder of the origins of the metro. As it turns out, this section of Metro line is shared between the adorable little Oslo trams and big Oslo Metro trains, which, thanks to the heavy branching of the network, leaves sufficient space between them to accommodate the trams.
That's
East
cool.
of Bekkestua, at Ringsted Metro trains stop, but trams bypass the station. Slightly further east at Jar, the trams do stop with separate platforms off the Metro mainline, adjacent
There's so many names. So many different places around Oslo I've never heard of.
to the main Jar platforms that allow trams to be bypassed as necessary.
Oh, wow, that's cool. You can park the tram on the side if you need to get by them. I've never seen this before.
A little further to the east still, and a fly-under exists alongside another curve of track, allowing trams to enter the right-of-way without blocking Metro trains.
Wow.
From here, the services continue northeast, before uniting with the 2 service just west of Smerstad station, and then traveling into and through the center of Oslo with the tunnel. The 3 remains together with the 2 service until just east of Hellevrud station, before turning south on a mixed alignment that begins above ground but grows increasingly tunneled as it travels along the mountainside akin to the 2 to the north.
Oh my god, look how huge this metro system is. You can go so far on this.
The 4 service starts just about 2 kilometers north of the eastern terminus of the 3, or 1 kilometer west of the service's second to last station, where an extension is really begging to be made.
Wow.
This section of the 4, which winds its way north on a nearly entirely above ground alignment, is shared with some limited 1 services east of Helsfjord. After passing through the central tunnel, the 4 turns north and then northeast on an above ground alignment to the National Stadium, before
You know, to be honest, as an American who doesn't use trains or metros or public transportation, I never use this stuff. This is a little confusing. There's a lot of crossovers and joining and junctions and extensions, and I can't say I understand everything.
before diving underground and heading due east to the comparatively dense neighborhood of Nydalen. From here, the line runs south and then east and north, coming tantalizingly close to the metro corridor east of the central tunnel, nearly forming a loop, before running northeast on a mostly above-ground alignment that grows increasingly tunneled all the way to the city limits.
So many tunnels.
The final service on the system is the Super Weird 5, which proves humanity's desire to have metro loops wherever possible. The 5 service starts in the northeast with the 4 and runs all the way south toward the city's center, before diverging to connect across to the other metro lines just east of Toyen, after passing through Karl Berner's Platz. From here, the 5 goes through the central tunnel, all the way north and back around to Karl Berner's Platz.
That's kind of convenient. Yeah, I can see why you'd want to create a lot of loops in this system.
This time from the north rather than the east, before running once again through the central tunnel. After passing by the National Stadium a second time, the 5 service diverges to the north on an entirely above-ground alignment to Sognsvann, a station less than half a kilometer south of the shore of the beautiful lake of the same name.
Okay.
Now, as I alluded to before,
Oh my goodness. We just covered the entire Oslo metro system map in like a couple of minutes. That was a lot. But basically what I'm taking away is there's a really cool, complicated, big system of metro and trains where if you live in Oslo or around Oslo, what an incredible tool that you get access to. Like, it'd be cool to actually see this kind of thing, because like I said, for a lot of Norwegians, it's probably a little boring, because maybe you take these public transportation, maybe you ride this all the time, and it's kind of boring. But for me, it's like, wow, look at these trains and metro carts and buses. And it's like, it's exciting for me. It's probably boring if you do it all the time.
Oslo has big metro trains, which is again surprising because Oslo is not a big city. And usually, if a small city does have a metro, it's definitely a light metro, which Oslo's roughly 110 meter long, 3.2 meter wide trains, wide enough to accommodate a transverse 3-2 seating arrangement, are
nice. This the inside? Plenty of space. Looks good. Looks clean. It's actually clean. Impressive.
not. These are not unlike the metro trains seen in Helsinki, and just like them, feature bottom contact third rail. To be fair, not every service runs full-length train, as the one, for example, cannot accommodate them with its short platforms, but this is still really impressive, and Oslo's older trains, which were also dual power, again connecting back to the system's tram origins, were even wider at 3.3 meters.
Wow.
As it turns out,
These are some big trains. Like, yeah, that's nice.
Oslo's new MX-3000 stock, which has been in use since the 2000s, make up the entire fleet and are closely related to the V-sets in Vienna, a system you can learn more about in a previous explainer. They were also designed by Porsche and built by Siemens.
So some of these metro trains are like 20 years old, actually, but they still look good.
Given Norway is
You guys must take very good care of this stuff. I think, like in New York City, like the underground, the trains, the subways are disgusting. And there's people homeless people who live there, and crime, tons of crime on the metros in New York City. It's dangerous. It's scary, from what I understand. This looks very nice.
Given Norway is known to be a country with no shortage of money and a penchant for mega projects, especially tunnels, you'd probably expect Oslo was going full Stockholm or even Paris and massively expanding its metro. But that's not really the case. And again, let's be fair, Oslo already has a really big metro system given its size. And so the metro actually only has one major project currently under construction. That would be the new Fornebu line, which is a new fully underground line from just west of Majorstuen to the peninsula of Fornebu via Skøyen and Lysekær, which are both major rail stations.
So they're still adding new lines to the Oslo metro. Not that many, because this is really impressive for like a smaller city like Oslo.
Now, with the new extension, Oslo's central tunnel will become even more heavily used, and so a new, roughly 8-kilometer city center tunnel for the metro will be built in the future in the shape of the letter M.
And there's even more getting built soon to accommodate how this is going to become more popular and more used. I mean, how common is it if you live in Oslo? Like, do most people use the metro and use public transportation? That's what I understand. I just can't relate to that at all.
Starting at Majorstuen in the west, serving a new station before dipping south to connect to Stuttinga, heading back north once again to service a new station before cutting east across the existing tunnel to connect just east of Tøyen. The new tunnel is good, but it does feel odd that a better alignment couldn't be found, and thus key areas of central Oslo, north of the city center and south of the city center, particularly along the waterfront, will not be closely served by metro. That being said, as with other cities with heavily interlined city center tunnels, from Munich to Brisbane to Stockholm, the additional capacity will be a game changer for the network, as it should allow services to split between the two tunnels, nearly doubling frequency and thus capacity across the entire network, which is...
That's cool. That's cool that Norway and Oslo, you have this huge metro system, and you're still, today, thinking of ways to expand it and make it so more people can use it. That's really awesome.
The powerful thing about networks which are so heavily branched getting new tunnels. That might make you wonder though, how did Oslo get so much metro in the first place? Well, the simple answer is by building a very large portion of the network above ground, and by reusing existing tram infrastructure. Even as newer stations and extensions are increasingly tunneled, something which is still relatively cost-effective in Norway given the country's vast experience undertaking such engineering works. Of course, structurally, a heavily branched network is also probably more cost-effective, because it minimizes duplication of the most expensive underground city center infrastructure and builds more track where it's cheap in the suburbs. As is happening in Oslo, additional capacity can be later unlocked by adding city center capacity. There are also simpler things, like...
Oh my god. I just gotta say, this guy talking about the metro, this guy really, really knows his stuff. I don't even think he's Norwegian. I don't know how he knows so much about Oslo's metro. Like, I don't even understand all of what he's talking about. There's so much information he knows about these trains.
Like the fact that some level crossings exist even today, and the system's basic stations, even on the grade-separated lines, which usually feature minor weather protection and ramps and overpasses rather than elevators or escalators. All in all, though, Oslo's metro is super impressive, especially for what is truly a small city.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching.
That is really impressive. Like, I wish we had more stuff like this here in the United States. I don't know why we don't. Norway just has like a perfect example of what we should be doing in our cities. We have lots of cities that are probably as big as Oslo all around the United States, and we do not have nearly as good a metro as Oslo. This was really impressive to take a look at. And actually a lot of fun, because this is something I personally don't really get to see. So anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts. If you live in Oslo or you've ever ridden on this metro or the public transportation in Norway, please leave a comment with your thoughts on all this. That'd be really cool to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Norway and learning about Norwegian culture and seeing things in Norway I've never seen before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching and see you next time.